What is up, Stargirl fans? Welcome back to another episode review and breakdown for Stargirl. So in this episode, we had a whole bunch of stuff going on with Henry because, the episode is called Brainwave. But we had him learning to control his powers and a lot about his connection with his father, really. But then on top of that, we also got some more ISA set up. And at the end, someone very important in the show found out Courtney's secret. But before we get into all of that stuff and everything that happened in the episode, I gotta give a massive spoiler warning if you have not yet seen episode 9, Brainwave, of Stargirl Season 1. So go check it out if you haven't seen it yet, but if you have, then good thing you're here, because we're gonna talk about everything that happened in the episode. So let's jump into all the spoilers for this episode. So of course this episode was focused on Brainwave, both junior and senior, and we started off the episode with another flashback from decades ago featuring Dr. King, which is just what I'm going to call him for this video just to avoid confusion between junior and senior, that whole thing. So Dr. King, he's clearly just gotten his powers and is struggling with them just as Henry is in present day. And that is when we see him accidentally or not accidentally kill this guy that was trying to rob him. So this is why he sits down and starts recording these tapes to document his journey of learning to control his powers. And these tapes are actually how Henry is learning about his powers as well, as we see him take each one out of his father's brainwave closet, and he just watches all of them as he practices levitating different objects. And we also find out some interesting stuff from Dr. King's videos, like how he got his powers from experimenting on himself because wherever he was working wasn't giving him enough funding and thought it was too dangerous and stuff. So he just decided to experiment on himself. And then also how his headache problems, just like what we've been seeing with Henry, how he's been getting these headaches, how Dr. King solved his headache problems by killing people, and that took the pain away from him by inflicting pain on others. So that's a little sick, but that's what I love about this, because this episode and with Dr. King's storyline here, it really started off with him just being scared and confused, just like Henry, and then it just all of a sudden took a really dark, twisted turn, and now Dr. King just overall hates people because of the horrible thoughts that they have running through their minds, and he just doesn't like people now. So you can tell why he's a villain. Let's just hope it doesn't run in the family, because Henry doesn't seem like that all bad of a guy, but at the same time, Dr. King didn't either before he got his powers, and maybe now that Henry has his powers, he may take a turn to the dark side, but let's hope not. But meanwhile, while all of that was going on, we have Courtney, who now knows about Henry's powers, and she is suggesting to Pat that they try and recruit him to the JSA. And, I think it's a great idea because, he can literally mind control people, he can read people's minds, so he can tell people what they're thinking and find out who's in the ISA and stuff. And Pat thinks it's a good idea too, but he's more focused on his research into Dragon King and Dr. Ido. But that's when we find out Pat and Sylvester actually fought Dragon King before they joined the JSA as part of the 7 Soldiers of Victory, which we got this cool photograph of here in the episode, and it's basically a proto-JSA. So it was really cool seeing this team, because we got to see some more obscure DC characters in here. So let's go ahead and do a full-on breakdown here. So starting off on the top left corner, we have the Crimson Avenger, and down below him we have Wing. Then if you look up at the cowboy on the far right, that is Vigilante. Then of course we have Stripesy and the Star-Spangled Kid, because this was before Sylvester became Starman and joined the JSA. Then probably one of the coolest things about this picture is that we have both Green Arrow and Speedy. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. We know that this show is part of the Arrowverse. This takes place on Earth 2. So even though Green Arrow and Oliver Queen is dead on Earth Prime, he's alive here, or maybe not, because I mean this photo is pretty old, so he might have just died from old age. But we at least know that there's another Green Arrow that exists on Earth too, along with Speedy, which is really cool. And I don't know if we'll see them at some point in the future, if we'll see younger versions of them. Maybe we'll see at least Speedy at some point. But like I said, this is an old photograph, so they'd probably be super old by now. But there is one last person here in this picture which is very important, and this is basically a major reveal to us, even though we kind of already knew it, and I've been talking about it in my past episode reviews. But that's Shining Knight. So you can see there, the big knight, he's got the sword and everything. But who else have we been seen using a sword in this season? Janitor Justin. So speaking of Janitor Justin, we actually got a quick little scene of him in this episode as well that's definitely teasing some stuff. And the next episode of this season of Stargirl is called Brainwave Jr., but then the one after that is called Shining Knight. So that episode is going to probably be all about Janitor Justin and him being Shining Knight and all that stuff. But anyway, this quick scene of him was basically him cruising the halls of Blue Valley High with his mop, and then all of a sudden it transforms into the Cosmic Staff for a few seconds. So I think this is just him starting to regain his memories, because that's kind of the storyline that goes along with this character, is that he lost his memories, and that's why in Shiv Part 1 we saw when he said Stripesy, that was like him starting to remember his memories. Like, oh, I remember that dude because I was on a team with him, the 7 Soldiers of Victory. So that was really cool seeing him here. But we do also get a small update on both Shiv and Dragon King in this episode, as Beth is out on Cindy Patrol, and she finds out that Cindy has been unenrolled from Blue Valley High, and apparently she's overseas with her mother, which of course we know isn't the case, because we see Cindy in Dragon King's dungeon, and she says, "I'm gonna kill you like I killed Mom." Like, that's not good. So of course Daddy Dragon King isn't too big of a fan of her right now, so he tells his minions to fill the chamber with gas, since they'll always put her to sleep as a baby. What? I mean, worst father ever. I mean, you gave her gas like that as a baby? I mean, no wonder she turned out like she did. Dude, it's your fault she's a complete badass villain. I mean, you gave her... That's just wrong. He's a bad father, definitely. But we do also get a quick scene of Dragon King with the ISA, and he's telling them about how Henry has powers as well, and this is where we find out a little bit about Project New America, because we know that's the ISA's big goal and big plan is Project New America, but we never really even knew what it was. We knew they needed a satellite and they needed Brainwave's powers, but here we find out that what their plan is basically is they want to basically mind control the whole country so that they can reshape everyone and change people to be how they want them to be, to create their new America, to make it a safer place, all about families. But I mean, that's a little too evil to be all about families. I think it's just more about power and greed. But yeah, so like I said, Henry is basically the main character of this episode because the episode is kind of named after him. So we do get some more Henry in this episode when he goes to the hospital to see his father. And as he's walking in, he reads everyone's minds. And this is where he comes to a realization. And he says, "You're right, Dad. People are monsters." So you're starting to realize that maybe Henry isn't such a good guy. And maybe these powers are corrupting him. And maybe he may become a villain. But then Courtney actually visits Henry at the hospital to basically try and recruit him, but she accidentally lets it slip by thinking about it, that she is the reason his father is in a coma. And while this scene is going on, he also tells her all the bad thoughts people have, like how he walked by some guy with his mother, and the guy was thinking, like, I hope she dies soon so I can get the house and the car. Like, that's a bad son. I mean, everybody that he walked by was thinking something bad. Like the doctor was saying, like, I never liked Dr. King. Or, like, everybody was thinking bad stuff about Henry's father. But then, I just think that's crazy that guy who's walking with his mother, I hope she dies soon so I get the house and the car. Like, dude, that's just wrong. I mean, that's just not good. But Courtney is trying to convince him that not all people are bad. Like, sure, some people are thinking some nasty thoughts like that, but not everyone is bad, and some people are good. And I think Henry actually does start to realize that and start thinking that not everyone is bad. But then Yolanda shows up as Wildcat, and she basically threatens him to stay away, but at the same time she's thinking, I trusted you, I loved you, but you betrayed me. Even though I think actually it's more Cindy's fault that everything happened there, because it's not like Henry was the one that sent it to everyone. We know that Cindy took Henry's phone and then probably sent it to herself and then sent it to everyone in the school. So it's not really Henry's fault, although he shouldn't have been showing his friends in the first place. But I mean, it's not really his fault completely. So maybe if he does join the JSA at some point and he kind of redeems himself, maybe you can see that relationship start to rekindle. I don't know, maybe. But there's definitely a lot of pain and tension between those two. But after that whole confrontation there between Henry and Courtney and Yolanda and everything, it's time for dinner, because Barbara has invited Jordan and his family over for dinner because he was talking about how he's finished this mission that he's been working on for years, and of course he's referring to basically taking care of, or just killing everyone that was involved with the death of his wife and that company that was responsible for it. So you get kind of that classic thing where he's saying, like, I thought that I would feel more satisfaction after I completed this, but it changes nothing. And I mean, that's kind of the whole point of it. I mean, yeah, you can get revenge and you can kill your enemies, but it's not going to bring back your wife. So yeah, he also mentioned that whenever he would come back from a big trip like this, that his wife would always cook this big dinner when he got back from a long trip, and it just reminded him of what he was doing it for and why he continued on doing that stuff. But this dinner, some pretty crazy stuff goes down here at this dinner. But I have to say, one of the coolest, interesting parts about this is that it's literally Stargirl and Icicle in the same house having dinner together. Like, literally arch enemies, just without each other knowing it yet. So that's pretty crazy. And then you got Courtney and Cameron, who are maybe dating now. We're not completely sure. But one of the more funnier parts of this dinner, that at the same time wasn't really funny, was that Jordan and his parents were doing some kind of pray in another language. And just the last line of that pray was, so that our enemies might suffer. Like, if anyone else at that table could understand what they were saying, I mean, it'd be so obvious they're murderous psychopaths. But I just think that's so funny that he just snuck that in there, and he literally said, like, such an obvious bad guy thing, but none of them knew what he was saying, so he completely got away with it. But there's also some big reveals here, because Courtney actually finds out that Jordan is Icicle, or at least she assumes he is, because she is getting out this plate thing, and is bringing it to Jordan, and it's like a piping hot pan, but he just picks it up with his bare hands, so she can tell. I mean, if he was a normal person, then that would have burned him, but if he's got them ice cold chilly hands, then that wouldn't faze him at all. So of course she tells Pat, and at first he doesn't really believe it because there's really no evidence. I mean, like, oh, he picked up a pan that was hot. Ooh, that's so special. But after the Markents leave the house and they finish up dinner and all that stuff, Courtney goes down to the basement and whips out her cosmic staff. And then Pat also rushes down there to try and stop her, because she's going to go do another one of her reckless things and go out and try to fight the bad guys again on her own. but that never works out. But all of a sudden, as she whips out her cosmic staff, Barbara walks in, and she starts freaking out, like, what the hell is that? And, yeah, so I had a feeling either her or Mike were going to find out at some point this season, and I still think Mike probably will, maybe not until the season finale, but I actually thought that he would have found out before her, because now that Barbara knows, this could cause some big problems, because, I mean, if you're a mother, and why would you let your 15-year-old daughter go out and fight bad guys? I mean, that wouldn't you be worried about that? But from the promo of next episode, you can tell that she's definitely not too happy with this, and I think she's actually like gonna make her stop or something, at least based on the promo that we've seen for next episode. So that's really interesting. But I think at some point, before the end of the season, she'll come to this realization, you're the only one that can do this, you're destined for this, so even though I'm super worried about you and I just want to keep you protected, I know that you have to do this and you have to go out and do this. It's what you got to do. So I know she's going to be hesitant at first, but she's got to come around at some point, because I mean, her daughter's a freaking superhero, so you got to be a little proud at the same time of what she's doing there. But then we also get this huge cliffhanger scene that we get for every episode, and this is where we get introduced to Mr. Green, and he introduces himself to Henry, and apparently Dr. Green is Dr. King's like attorney or lawyer or something, and apparently Dr. King had a planned limited time of life support, but Henry can tell that Mr. Green is completely lying. He just wants Henry's signatures so that he can get the money and everything. And obviously Mr. Green doesn't say this out loud, but he's thinking it. And of course Henry can read minds, so he doesn't like that Mr. Green is lying. So Henry kind of starts to lose control, and then he kind of accidentally kills Mr. Green. And I mean, I think this basically confirms that no, he's not going to join the JSA. I mean, he literally just killed a man. How can he come back from that? He's going to be a full-on villain from now on. And I mean, they tried to get him in the JSA, but things just didn't work out. And now it looks like maybe he'll join the ISA, or maybe the Injustice Society Juniors. He can team up with Cindy and maybe Cameron if he turns out to be evil. But probably the biggest cliffhanger part of this scene is that when Henry kills this guy, Brainwave is awakened. So that's right, Dr. King has woken up from his coma now. And this is really interesting because in the comics with Brainwave and Brainwave Jr., the way that Brainwave Jr. officially unlocks his true potential and his powers is when his father, Brainwave, dies. So I was thinking maybe that would be how this would go. And I was starting to think that when Mr. Green showed up and said he had a limited life support time. So I was thinking, oh no, Brainwave is going to die, Dr. King is going to be killed off, and then Brainwave Jr. will have his full powers unlocked. But no, it was actually kind of the opposite. It's like as soon as Henry and Brainwave Jr. officially unlocks his true potential and his true powers, then Brainwave is kind of brought back to life and awakened from his coma. So I thought it was a really interesting twist that I didn't see coming, but I really love the way they did this, especially now because you've got two superpowered mind readers, telekinetics out there. You got two brainwaves running around, and I'll be interested to see who they actually use for Project New America, because we know that they need one of their powers to complete the project to mind control everyone, but which one will they use? Because obviously Dr. King was obviously on board the whole time with the mission, but Henry is just finding out about this stuff, so maybe he won't want to do it, maybe he won't want to get involved with this stuff, but we'll have to wait and see. And plus, maybe, depending on who they use, one of them will die from doing it. Like, maybe there will be a sacrifice. We don't know, but I'm definitely excited to find out. So, anyways, guys, this was pretty crazy. Lots of cliffhangers and surprises in this episode, with Barbara finding out that Courtney has a cosmic staff. I mean, she doesn't specifically know that she's Stargirl or anything. She doesn't know she's a superhero. She just walked in on her holding a giant glow stick. So, I mean, it probably doesn't look great. And then also we have Henry killing this guy, and then basically awakening his father, which is pretty crazy. So I love this episode. It was definitely more of a setup episode and not as much really happened here, but it was definitely planting the seeds for the next couple episodes. And just based on the promo for next episode, which is titled Brainwave Jr., it definitely looks like it's going to be awesome. And we only have, I think, 4 episodes left of the season, but this is definitely going to be an action-packed final 4 episodes. I'm super excited to see what happens in the final episodes of Stargirl Season 1. So, thanks so much for watching, guys. Please let me know all your thoughts on this episode and theories down in the comments below on not only this episode, but the final 4 episodes of this season, and maybe even beyond for Season 2. But, yeah, so thanks so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video, and hit that subscribe button so I can keep you up to date on everything that goes on in the DC life.